Welcome to Power Greater Than You, a podcast about recovery, hope, and transformation. Hosted by JD and Sean, we dive into life-changing stories, spiritual growth, and the journey beyond addiction, because the power to change is greater than you. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Power Greater Than You. My name's Sean Mobley.
Hey, Sean, JD, how are you? We have a special guest today. Deon, welcome.
Thank you.
Glad to have you here today. We're going to talk a little bit about hope, which is, by the way, Power Greater Than You, in this 12 steps of recovery, right? Coming to believe in a power greater than you. Mm-hmm. The cool thing is the principle behind that is hope.
Yeah, hope is something you kind of have to have, but I feel like we lost it along the way, somewhere in the mix. I don't know.
For sure.
Deon, if you want to kind of jump into a little bit about yourself and your backstory, people know us here, so why don't we teach them a little bit about you?
All right, thanks, Sean. My name's Deon. I'm 35, and hope was.
Oh, hey, Deon, Are you an alcoholic or a drug addict?
I am everything, all the above, my friend.
Just want to make sure.
I am all the above, absolutely, all yes, sir. Hope. Hope was like the furthest thing in my mind for most of my life, I could say. Even growing up, there was no hope of even a future, even at a young age, like when all the other kids were wanting to be, a cop, or I want to be like, own a business like my dad. I never really had those close positive influences in my life, so there was no I would think about my friends saying that, and I guess I would feel like I want to be like their dad, but my dad was dead at a young age. I was 11, so I never had that. Yeah.
That's hardcore, man.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, so you didn't want to be a fireman, you wanted to be a drug addict, it sounds like.
That wasn't the first option, right. Of course, yeah. But by 13, I kind of felt that drugs and alcohol was the answer to my problem, which at the time I didn't know, but it was me. And drugs and alcohol for a long time was the solution to that.
For sure.
So.
Yeah, make it go away, numb me out, do not deal with reality. And, this is great, especially at a young age, right, Sean?
Yeah,
drinking, drugging, it was all like, wow, this is...
Yeah, well, I was one of the guys that had good influence in my life. I had my parents, my dad's successful, my mom worked at home, I had my brothers, I was in sports, around good people, around good coaches. So I guess I have a question about, the environment that you kind of grew up in. You said you did, your father passed away. What kind of environment were you in that maybe led and started this path of, addiction?
So I grew up, my dad died when I was 11, and after that...
How did he die?
Yeah.
He died of lung cancer. He had lung cancer, and then it spread to brain and bone. And it was kind of a quick thing. It was within a year. Like I was 10 when he had got diagnosed originally, and then by my 11th birthday, he passed away.
Wow.
Yeah, and so
was he one of us? Like, was he into drugs?
He was actually he got his doctorate in pharmacy, and lost his license in 12 states in the United States, and kept bouncing around and losing his license everywhere he went, because he would write his own prescriptions, write all his friends' prescriptions with his name on the pad.
Wow.
And I can remember still when I would go visit him, even when I was 9 or 10, because we didn't live together at this point. And I remember going over there, and on his nightstand in his dresser was nothing but orange bottles with white caps. Labels were ripped off, no
Crazy.
names on them. So this was happening all the way up until the end. And no telling what I was young, I didn't know about it at the time, but now I can put two and two together. And my mom told me later on about the issue that he was arrested by the U.S. Marshals a few times, and had to get bonded out by my mom, and so it stems back definitely.
Gotcha.
Definitely.
Good. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Oh, my environment.
Yeah.
So my environment that I grew up in. So when he passed away and I was 11, we moved to Pasco County, Florida, from Dade City. So we kind of moved to the other side of Pasco, and in Port Richey area. And after that, my mom tried to keep the life that, the support I was getting kind of financially from my dad, because that was really the only support that was consistent from him, even when he wasn't there, emotionally and physically. Financially, he always was. So my mom felt the need to sustain this level of I guess, trying to comfort me by not, making me not have nice things. So she tried to do this, and in doing so, she's working 16, 18 hours a day. She was a pharmacist technician, which is how they ended up meeting in like the late 70s, 80s. And so she was gone, like all day, most of the night. And that was it. I was by myself. I remember I was homeschooled, and she would literally, like, before she would leave for work at whenever it was, 4 a.m, she would leave VHS tapes out of the day of schooling. So it was from Becca Books, was the actual maker of the homeschool films, and I would have to, wake up, eat breakfast, cook it myself, whatever, and then put this tape in and sit and watch these videos. But the environment, it didn't get bad until I started wanting to make friends in the area. And as soon as I started wanting to make friends in the area, I went straight to the negativity, because I've been lost and kind of going down this road since I can remember. So as soon as she let me kind of off the leash, I guess you could say, a little bit, I was negative as a child too. So negative attracts negative energy, and I just swarmed to the negative influences, and the rest is history after that. So it was just negative influence after negative influence, easily influenced.
So what was like the first drugs and alcohol that you did? Like, how old were you, and what did you do, and what did it feel like?
I was almost 13, I'd say 12, 13, and my uncles that I was around, my mom's brothers, and I was around them a lot, and they were framers, like old school framers, house builders. They would drink morning, noon, and night, smoking weed all the time. So I ended up, I think the first thing that I can remember is I remember stealing a bunch of roaches out of the ashtray on the back porch from my uncle's. So I got some weed, right? But I didn't want to just do that. I went out to my uncle's refrigerator that he had in his garage. I had to wait for the right moment where he was inside and didn't see me going in there, where he just had, it seemed like an endless supply of Budweisers. And I went in there and I grabbed 2 of those, and I went straight to my room and locked the door. And I'm trying to smoke these roaches. I got one of my mom's lighters because she was a cigarette smoker. So I'm smoking these roaches and at the same time chugging these 2 beers. And that was the first thing that I can remember that I tried it, other than like a sip here and there. That was when I wanted to try it at that time. I know now for the effect, because I see how they get like loose after they're home relaxing and chugging these things and smoking these things. I wanted to go for that effect instead of just tasting it, because I didn't like the taste, but I knew if I got past that, I would get the effect.
For sure.
And that's exactly what happened at 12 or 13. I did get the effect.
Pretty
and
creative too.
It was an instant love.
Yeah.
Instant. It changed the way I felt, and that's the only thing I was looking for. The poison didn't really matter. It was anything that I could get my hands on that was readily available that would change the way I felt the fastest.
Yeah, it was fun. The chase was fun, the feeling was fun, all of it was fun. And then, so for you, when you kept going, it's fun. Was it consequences? Was it, for me, it was internal, instead of having fun now, I'm just, beating myself up all the time. So for you, fast forward us now, where does that lead?
So the consequences started early. The consequences definitely started early. I was arrested and expelled from high school at, I think I was 15. It was my junior year, so I was in 10th grade, and the year had just started, and I was selling dime bags of weed in school. And I had, on this day, me and my friend, that one of the bad influences that I met a few years back, broke into an RV in the neighborhood because it smelled like weed every time he went by this RV. And now this guy runs a business, and he's never home like 6 months out of the year. So we talked it over and had a brilliant idea to take a screwdriver and break in this thing. We did, and we found like 2.5 pounds of marijuana. So Yeah, so that was
Very
like,
entrepreneurial of yourself.
it was, yeah,
Yeah.
successful, very successful break-in, right? So anyways, we went, got some dime bags. I dimed up a lot of this weed, and then had a great idea how to make a lot of money and to get rid of it fast, is to where I know all my friends go and their friends go, is school. So I brought it to school. I sold some in first period, which was gym class, and then a couple more throughout the day, and we left at lunch, smoking on lunch and like normal. And then all of a sudden I had a computer class for my last class of the day, and I remember the SRO officer and the principal and another lady had walked in the classroom and went straight to the teacher's desk, and when they said something to the teacher, which obviously, where is Deon at, and they all looked directly at me and never took their eyes off me and came straight to me. Now I got a marijuana pipe in my backpack, cigarettes, which I'm not allowed to have, a lighter I'm not allowed to have, and I had 30 dime bags in a gallon Ziploc tucked in my gym shorts right here. And they had escorted me down to the office, went and sat down in his office. He pulled out the dime bag from his desk with these little naked ladies on it, which was the exact ones I had. He said, "You want to tell me about this?" And I'm just thinking, like, how does he have one of these? You know what I mean? Like, what is going on? Long story short, the guy I sold to in first period took it straight to the cops. Told him how much I have, told him how I got it, because I told him the story, because I didn't know then.
Sure.
We broke in the RV and got all this stuff. So I was arrested. The consequences started. Probation, mom, bails me out every time, probation. Violated probation 3 times, mom pays it off, and I'm just a juvenile, so she's paying it away, and it just never ended, man. I've spent a lot of my life, and I'm 35, and incarcerated as far as jails and prison have been 7 years total, and then 3 more years have been in rehabs or sober living houses and stuff like that. So yeah.
I guess before we continue diving into this, right, I have a lot of questions. For the young people out there who maybe are in the same environment as you, and it's fucked up, right? It is. How do they not go down that path?
So the only thing, the thing that would have meant the most to me if I would have heard it at a young age is having positivity in your life. Because I truly believe that when you're around positivity, positive people, even nowadays, like let's say, it's hard nowadays for sure with the culture changing, like we were talking about earlier, but even music can be an influence, for young kids. I have a 12-year-old daughter, and I'm not currently in her life. I'm trying to be, but because that's a consequence, you know what I'm saying? And
Right.
and it's a consequence, and it's a living amends that I have to make and be acceptable that she has feelings too, and I can't force my way back in her life. But I do worry about that, I worry about what is she listening to, how is she talking to her friends on FaceTime. So like, to answer your question is, obviously for like 12, 13, which was when I started, the parents just have to be so on top of the positive influences that are around their children. They have to be aware that it is so easy to veer off the path that you might see your child, and your child might tell you they're doing this and tell you they're doing that. But when the door closes at night, like I said, when she's on FaceTime with her friends, does her mom really, she don't listen to every conversation. What are they talking about? Are they gonna, you know what I mean? My daughter got caught on FaceTime with a boy at 11, you know what I mean? So it's already, that's the start. It starts little, she might not be out drinking and drugging right now, but it's the pattern. As soon as that negative pattern starts, it starts for me, it started the rabbit wheel in my head, one thing after another, and which led to just worse and worse decisions. So the positive influence on children's life is so critical at that young of age, and literally growing all the way up to the parents have to stay on top of it. So after the consequences get worse and decision making gets worse, I learned no lessons because and it's hard because my mother has passed away now too, and but she taught me a lot, and I mean that in a way of enabling can be very damaging to a child.
For sure.
Enabling can be, and she didn't understand that. I had no clue because I've seen it. I was getting my way. You know what I mean? So like, obviously, growing up, we want to be enabled almost. We don't know how severe the consequences are going to get later in life because of enabling. So, you know, God rest her soul. She did what she thought was right at the time, being a newly single parent and trying to keep this lifestyle that my dad, you know, want him to live up to, or whatever you could say. But but eventually, you know, like us, you know, eventually we get sick and tired of being sick and tired, and my mother was the same way when it came to me. And so 15, 16, you know, I never stopped drinking and drugging the whole time she paid me through probation, failing 6 or 7 drug tests, you know, bonding me out again, this and that, and finally I guess just paid it all. I don't know. All I remember about that time was eventually when I went to court one time after a violation, I just got bonded, I bonded out, went to court, and they said just sign here, and that's it. And like I seen on there like an amount like that was paid. And I didn't put 2 and 2 together at the time, but my mom literally just paid me to not be in trouble no more. Paid them so I'm not in trouble no more.
Right.
And so I never got to really feel the consequences, right? And when I didn't, I learned the hard way, and it's been like that my whole life. So until I was getting older and, you know, coming up to 17, 18, now I'm really hard in pills. I'm really big in pills. This is back when, like I said, I lived in Port Richey, and I can remember at times I would literally have, my mom had a Nissan Titan, a 2004 Nissan Titan, and I would go pick it up at her work, and then I would literally grab my friend, and we would there was like 6 or 7 older gentlemen, women, and that we would take them to the MD and More clinic in Tampa over here, and they would go in, and in less than an hour they would come out with like 220 Roxy 30s. They would come out with 90 Xanax bars, 90 Somas, you know, whatever. A couple guys got Dilaudids, you know, back then. This is when it was like the doctor shopping era, you know, and I helped fund the whole thing, like, and by selling, I helped fund the whole thing. And in doing that, not only did my habit and my addiction skyrocket, but the level of consequences that were about to come that I had no idea were coming were about to get insanely worse, you know. And I did. I got arrested. I got arrested for a dealing in stolen property for pawning some gold, and that started the adult record. That was right when I turned 18. I was on probation for that, and then I sold to undercover DEA agents that were watching us leave the clinic with all these people, followed me, and then a CI that I knew from high school ended up setting me up, and I went and sold to these undercover DEA agents, and I did it 2 times. The reason I didn't do it again was because they wanted more than I had in my pocket, or else I would have done it.
Right.
And it would have been trafficking. So I got 2 counts of sales, manufacturing, and delivering of a controlled substance, and 2 counts of possession of a controlled substance. So that's 2 second-degree felonies and 2 third-degree felonies.
We've done it. We've done it all. We all have these crazy, crazy stories that always end the same way. And, you know, until, and back to the name of this podcast, until I found a power greater than myself. So it's not me. I can't do this thing. I can do it with Deon. I can do it with Sean. But I can't do it with JD, and JD, that just does not a winning combination. So take us through. So you're in prison 4 years. Hey, I think you wanted to ask him, can you get high in prison?
Yeah, tell him about, you know, I'm sure you continued on. I would hope not, but I'm sure you did. Talk to me about, you know, the drugging in prison and what, you know, the culture's like in there.
So in prison, so I waited. It was quick. By the time they call it a bluebird, right? So when the bluebird pulls up, it's 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, and it picks you up. You get on this bus. You're chained. You're shackled around your waist, and your ankles are chained to the floor, with a whole bus full of people that are all going to prison, right, out of that county. And it's pitch black. You can't see nothing, and they got like this gloss that you can't see out the window either. You can tell if it's light or dark, but it was 2 a.m, so we know it's going to be dark. But you can't see anything. Like, I remember looking for road signs, like, you know, because I've been going like an hour and a half, and I'm like,
do you know where you're going? Or?
No clue. No one can know anywhere that they're going at all, and it's a safety risk, because someone could say, hey, you know, call their girl or their man and say, hey, meet me on I-95 at 4:05. I'm going to be passing here, and, you know, you see in the movies all the time. So I'm guessing the security factor is why no one knows where they're going. You just know you're going to prison. But there's over 100 of them in the state. You never know. Could be going to the Panhandle. You could be going to Miami. You could go to Orlando for they call it a reception center. So everyone goes to a reception center first. The reception center is like where you do all the health stuff. You know, they do blood work, they do all these tests, and, you know, they do your classification. So the classification is to see where they're going to house you. Are you a, you know, gang member? Are you a registered sex offender? You know, all that stuff. So it's really, what I noticed in the reception is it's mainly like if you're handicapped, they will put you in a dorm that is, you know, somewhat special needs. They really don't care too much. They might just give you a wheelchair and you got to wheel around. That's it. But the only other exception is that they tried at this point. This was 2012, so they were trying to segregate the gangs to have less gang activity and, you know, stuff like that in prison. So they check all your tattoos and they make sure, you know, there's no gang affiliations in your file or jacket, as they called it in prison. It's all your paperwork from every county you've ever been in, every prison. And so what I didn't understand was I was at the reception center. It was called CFRC in Orlando. I was there for about a month, maybe a month and a half, I think, 5 weeks, something like that. And then same thing. All of a sudden, it's like, hey, get on the bus. It's 2 a.m. Same deal. Cuff, shackle, waist, everything locked to the floor. Pitch black. No idea where I'm going. They don't tell you any of this. You know what I mean? Like, they know where you're going, but they don't tell you. Same deal as when I left jail. And,
so while you're in there, and when you're waiting for 30, 35 days, are you getting high?
Okay, so that let me touch on that. So no, and I think, you know,
could I get high if I wanted?
Once I got to prison, yes. Okay. Once I got to prison, yes. Every dorm was getting high on whatever you wanted. I mean, I went to Hardy. It was where I went in Wauchula, and that was the main camp that I went to after the reception center. But when I was in the county jail and got, you know, this was, like I said, all these other times were slaps on the wrist. So this was a real deal grown man consequence that I'm about to have to do. I'm about to have to go do calendars now, locked behind a fence with gangbangers and killers and rapists and all that, you know. This is a consequence.
It's a real deal.
It's a real deal. The kid shit's over with, you know what I'm saying? Now it's time to man up. You're either going to, you know, that's it. There's no way out. You sign the paper, you go do the time, and you don't get to choose where you do it or who you do it with.
Right.
You're forced to do it. And so that kind of hit me waiting those couple weeks before I left the jail. It really kind of hit me, and I was doing a lot of thinking, you know, and I'm just like, man, something's got to be done. That might have been the time where I was like, it might have been one of the first times where I really wanted to say to myself that this is a problem. Drinking, drugging, and not just that, you know what I'm saying? Because I did have like brief stints, like weeks and 30 days of sobriety at this time, trying to do counseling, or I would quit using for like a week before probation to try not to fail another drug test. So there was like brief stints of this little sobriety, but you know, it was like, this is a serious problem. I think I have a real problem.
I like that.
It was I think. Yeah. I wasn't sure. I wasn't going to admit it.
Well,
I was just saying this to myself.
Why? Yeah. Okay.
And I didn't know at that point. At that point, I didn't know, but I was saying this to myself and to a power greater than me. You know, I had no idea at this time that any kind of power other than me and drinking and drugging existed at this point.
Right.
And so when I was like talking to myself, and, you know, I think I have an issue, I think something's going on, and I'm about to go to some fucked up places right now for the next 4 years, I better tighten up. Like, I was in fear that if I was high I would be letting my guard down, and I would get taken advantage of immediately. You got to think, at this point in my life, I'm like 162 pounds, 6 foot tall, soaking wet. 162 pounds, drug addict.
Drug diet.
Yeah. Drug diet, yeah. Stem fast diet, you know what I mean, as they called it. So that was it, 160 something pounds, and I'm about to go to prison with people, murderers, killers, you know what I mean? And like the fear was taking over a little bit about if I do continue the lifestyle, which I could have because my mom was still alive, and I would have lied and told her anything to send me money because I got to eat, Mom. You know what I mean? I got to get food. They're not feeding me in here. And she would, $100, she would do it. You know what I mean? Because that was my mom, you know? But I didn't because I was scared to let my guard down. I was scared that I would get trampled on if I did that. Not knowing, you know, this is before I even went there. And so I kept that mentality when I went in there, and I kept that mentality, and I seen how people were acting. At this time, Tunchi was a bit K2, Spice. This shit was just coming on the streets, kind of like legally, I guess. So that was like everywhere in there. Everyone's getting high on this Spice stuff, like K2 they call it Tunchi, all this stuff, whatever. So everyone's getting high on this stuff, and I see how they're acting. And I'm like, if I do that one time, this guy's gonna rob me for sure, you know. And I only got a couple soups and a bag of chips, but he's gonna take it. I know it, you know, and I know that. And that kept me away from it. And like, I kept that, and I was like, because all I have is my clothes that I'm wearing and a little bit of space in my locker. You can't fit much in there, but that's all I have to my name. That's it. You know, so I was like protecting that with everything I had. And if I was under the influence of anything, my guard's gonna get let down. They don't give you locks anymore because people die because they kill people with locks and a sock. Right. They kill people with them, so we didn't have that. So I kind of kept that, man, and that kept me straight. Wow. That kept me straight. I will say there was probably 2 instances that I did hit. I thought it was a cigarette that was being passed around. Well, it had some of this K2 shit in it, and it got me twice like that. But immediately when it happened, it wasn't the euphoric feeling that I got at 12 when I chugged those beers and hit those roaches. Yeah. The feeling that I got when I realized that it wasn't just a cigarette, I immediately went straight to my bunk and I sat down and I sat over my locker until the feeling had passed. And it was complete paranoia. Cops know I'm high. I'm screwed. This guy's gonna rob me. That was a thought pattern. Great feeling, right? Horrible. That was like paranoia. And to be honest with you, I think that was the first time that I didn't have a good feeling doing any type of drugs. Right. That was the first time. Every other time, I enjoyed every bit of any drug. That was the first time because I was already overtaken by so much fear. And when I did that, I felt like I was done. They're gonna kill me.
But here's the big question, right? Because you know, I have been to prison. You know, and the prison was like solitary confinement, maximum lockdown. But it was a prison in my own mind. Like there was 3 walls. I couldn't get out. All I had to do is look to the back where recovery was, and I could have walked right out. But so, I mean, I'm saying that as an analogy, but I do know that, well, first of all, in some of these books that in recovery, they talk about jails, institutions, and deaths. So I know that you got the jails covered, and I think you overdosed a couple times, 2 or 3 or 5 times, 9 times. Yeah. So, you know, you got that covered. Yeah. But those 4 years, they do have recovery meetings in prison. Did you ever want to be a part of that? Did you try to be a part of that? It was like, nah, I could do this on my own?
No, yeah, I guess I felt a little bit that way, that like my willpower was enough at that point. But also, you know, like I said, this was 2012 to 2016. There was a chapel, and then they did have church services and stuff like that, but I definitely wasn't interested in any of that for sure. And the meetings or 12 steps that would happen was like so few and far between. They wouldn't notify everybody or nothing, so there was no groups really to go to. I mean, dude,
you're a drug addict, drug dealer. You could have found. I mean, we make these excuses like,
of course.
Well, it wasn't on the bulletin board.
Yeah, I wasn't ready.
But you know, I mean, I'm just you know, holding
wasn't
you
ready.
accountable. Yeah, I mean that's the bottom line is.
I wasn't ready.
I'm not talking for you, but I know if you want. I know Deon. I've known you years now, right? If 5 years. If you want something, you get it.
Yeah.
Sobriety or otherwise. So.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
And I knew I wasn't ready because if I wanted to, just because I could stay sober in a place like that, when I got out, let's just say this, when I got out and being in prison and I witnessed, crazy stuff, man. I've witnessed murders. I've witnessed, people, I witnessed heinous things that like I wouldn't even really talk on a platform about. Like it's a once in a lifetime experience, but it taught me lessons seeing all those things, and I never forgot that.
But just to remind you, because we're friends, you did go back to prison. So even though you saw all these things, or jail, or whatever you want to call it, like again, it's just like the powerfulness of the addiction is something that until there's some type of recovery program, or some people get sober doing yoga. That's cool. Whatever works for you, but and I think you mentioned 9 overdoses, right? So like, how do you get to 9? Like, if I'm getting a 1, I think I'm one and done. But just maybe talk a little bit about what it was like the first time and then the 9th time.
So when I got out in 2016, I had every intention on being a father. I was lucky enough to get to a work release center, so I even had a full-time job, and the job transferred to where I lived. My mom passed away actually 9 months before I made it home. So she never got to see me come home from prison. She never got to see me sober in the real world. The last 3 years, she's seen me sober in there when they would come to visit, but I was in a lockdown environment. She never got to witness me sober outside of that environment. And she also passed the cancer, and it spread to bone and all this stuff. She fought it for years. She was already getting chemo when I got sentenced to the prison. So it was kind of expected. It was kind of expected to happen, but 9 months before I came home. So when I got out, I was focused. I was working, double time. I'm picking up shifts. They love me because now I'm in the real world and I don't have to go back to this work release center every night. I don't have an ankle monitor on. I'm not on nothing. I'm not on no probation. I don't got to report to nobody. Free man. Finally a free man. 4 years and I'm finally a free man. I came home with a job. Came home right away was my daughter's 4th birthday. Right when I came home, and she's 4, and I got to see her. My mother and her came literally every 2 weeks, and sometimes they would miss a visit, but it would be monthly for sure. So the whole time I was in there, they were driving 3.5 hours one way to come see me every 2 weeks to every month. So I got to witness my daughter growing up like that. Came home for her 4th birthday. Dad's home, and I got called daddy. I was being called daddy by my daughter, and she's 4. Wow, this was the one reason that I wanted to go on the run years ago, was to see her, make sure she's healthy, happy, blah blah blah. But let's not forget about the second reason, because I wanted to go on the run to keep fueling my addiction. And now this whole time, I never learned anything about it. I never dealt with it. I suffered consequences knowing they were caused because of my addiction, but now I'm a free man. And I got no one to report to, and no one's watching my back. I'm doing great. I'm making money. I just got a new truck. House is paid. This is great. All it took, I had no mental defense against the first anything at all. And I didn't know that because for a few months it was great. And I'm talking, I'm dad every day. We're going to the park. We're eating ice cream. I'm taking her to the movies. We're doing all this stuff. Her mom's letting me do it right away because she sees I'm doing good. And I got offered Roxy's at work by a cook. And he came up to me randomly. I probably talked to this dude 2 times. Now, I've only been home a couple months. And he comes up to me before work, and I'm getting a drink or something. And he opened his hand. He's like, yo, you want a few of these? And it was the Roxy 30s that I was addicted to for all those years that caused all this trouble. But I never worked on the addiction part, the alcoholism, the addiction. I never worked on it. I suffered a 4-year consequence, but nothing was done about my addiction. So when I seen him
growing and growing, getting
the whole time,
without even picking up.
So you would think, just coming home after doing a 4-year consequence and missing all these years with my daughter, and now being back in her life, and she's loving me to death, family's back around, you know what I mean? Everyone's loving me. You would think, when I looked at those in the palm of this dude's hand, that I would recoil from it, right? I would just be like, get out of here. Dude, I just came home. This is what happened, blah, blah, blah. But none of that even crossed my mind. That's what I mean about the no mental defense at all. I've seen people drinking beers these whole months. Whatever, you know? It's whatever. It wasn't my preference.
So would you just grab him out of his hand and slam? Or?
Immediately when he did it, and I looked at him and I said, how much for 5? I don't even know where that came from, you know? I have no idea where that came from. I said, how much for 5? And I was already grabbing my money clip out of my pocket. And he said, well, I'll just, just give me this much more. I'll just give you the 10, dude. Oh, yeah. No question at all. Bought them, and as soon as they hit my hand, I was already high.
Sure.
I was already the high was when I looked at him in this guy's hand. The high started, right?
Absolutely.
The dopamine was rolling through me right away. So immediately I went to the bathroom, did 2 of them immediately. Didn't need to do 2. It's been years since I did these things, but I did 2 of them. Worked my ass off all night. Great, you know what I mean? I woke up the next day. Did a couple more, went to work, did them through work. What do you think happens that second night, you know? I'm looking for that cook. Hey, did you bring any more of those? And that's where it all, and it never ended. And it just kept going and going and going. And within 3 months, I got kicked out of the house I had just got. My truck, I sold it. I sold it for actually 100 Roxys. I sold my truck for 100 Roxys. Kicked out of my house. Kid's mother knows I'm using again. Daughter wants nothing to do with me, and I'm homeless. 3 months. 3 months after being home and doing a relapse, that was it. Because I never worked on it. I never figured out a way throughout that whole time that I was gone that could have been so constructive for the rest of my life. I just thought, well, I'm not using now, so I'm good. I just won't do it again.
Yeah.
That was the mentality, and I kept that mentality and just did my time. And then went home, not thinking about when someone comes up and offers me the love of my life. Because let's be honest, I've had women, and I've had a daughter. Those pills, though, nothing else matters. That's that was my first love, the only love I had. There was some suicide thoughts and suicide attempt. I made a lot of money on a side job one time, and I remember getting a lot of heroin. And I was an intravenous drug user for 15 of these years. So I got enough heroin that I knew if I did all of this heroin at one time in a secluded location, hidden, that there's no way I'd be alive. No way.
Right.
That was the goal.
So you're going to power out.
Power out. This is the way out right here.
Yeah.
Because this is life. Like, I thought I had it. I thought I had it figured out. I came home strong, hit the ground running. Didn't even last a couple months, and I'm homeless, jobless, carless, everythingless. Daughter's gone, nothing I can do yet. Mom's been dead. I have nobody, nothing at all.
So you have a failed suicide attempt?
I got the heroin, I got the needles, and I'm walking to a place where there's woods. I know it's secluded. I know I can go do this. This is it. Only thought. It was only thought. So it's like a 4-mile walk to these woods my idea to go to, right? So I get tired. I'm almost there, and I get tired. So I stop to grab a water out of my backpack. I sit down at like one of those benches, a bus bench, like a public transportation bench. I sit on the bench. I'm drinking some water. And I'm almost there, maybe a half a mile. And I drink water, and I look up. And when I look up, I'm in front of the hospital. The hospital in this city is right in front of this bus stop. So I look up and I look at the hospital, and I'm pretty sure, as far back as I can remember, this was probably the first experience that I had of a power greater than myself. I looked at the hospital, and something told me there's 2 options. right now that you go left or you go right. Left was to keep walking to them woods, go about half a mile in these woods, do all this heroin, and you will die and never make it out, and that's it. Deon's done, that's over. Or you take these needles, you take this bag of heroin, you put it in this trash can, and you go in that hospital and ask for help. And it took me like, and I don't even know what made me think of these two things, right? I knew the one thing I was going to do, but where did this other thought come in? All of a sudden, there was like an answer that I don't have to die at this moment, and I would have never thought of that myself. I have one mission and one mission only, and I'm walking miles to do it, and I already got all the dope. I have no idea where that came. At the time, I had no idea where that came from. And it took about 5 minutes to convince myself because my mind's made up.
So you go into the hospital.
I drop my drugs in the trash can. I go in the hospital. I say, hey, I'm a drug addict and I need help. There's a lot of homeless people around this area. A lot of like psychosis that goes on around this area. So they kind of were just like shushing me out, They're like, there's a detox down there. Go a couple miles back this way. And I said, no, y'all don't understand. Like, I need help. Like, I didn't tell them this mission that I was just on,
Right.
So I'm walking back out these sliding doors.
But if you did tell them, they would automatically put you in for 72 hours.
Here's option 2. I'm walking out the doors, and now there's 2 more thoughts crossing my mind. I'm gonna go back to that garbage can and grab that dope. That was the first thought when I'm walking. They're like, they won't take me in here. I'm gonna go grab. There's a sign. I knew I was right. Let me go grab this dope and do what I was trying to do. Self. That's what I'm telling myself. Or I have no idea where I even thought of this because I never heard anyone do this. I go back in this hospital and tell them, if you don't keep me, I'm gonna kill myself or I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna come over this counter right now.
You cover both of them.
Cover both ends. I'm either gonna jump this counter and strangle this lady, or I'm gonna kill myself right in front of you. And I had a razor in my pocket, razor knife for work, and I pulled it out and I opened it up. Ooh, they hit the button and everything. The security swarmed me, tackled me. It worked. It worked. So I went to detox. And that was kind of the first power greater than myself moment that I had at a suicide attempt.
Yeah. Well, that's some good stuff. I mean, so I guess after you had that power greater than yourself experience, you've been sober ever since?
I wish I could say yes to that.
Of course not.
Yeah, I wish I could say yes to that. No. And since then, that, like I said, that was the first power greater than myself kind of moment. So since then, the wheels have been turning that there might be another way to live. There might be. Yeah. This is the way I'm living, and this is all there is to it. But now I'm noticing,
there's that surrender. You guys know the story about the frog and the scorpion, right?
Yeah. No. What's the story?
So there's a scorpion, right? And the scorpion says to the frog, "Hey man, I need to get across the river here." And the frog's like, "Hey, I get it. You need to get across the river, but you're a scorpion, dude. You're gonna kill me." He's like, "No. If I did that, we would both die." He says, "No, I just need to get across. I'll get on your back. We'll get across." The frog, for whatever reason, says, "All right, get on my back." And they're swimming across the river. They're almost to the other side, and the frog feels this big sting in his back. And he says to the scorpion, "Why, scorpion? Why did you sting me? We're both going to die now. We're both going to drown. We're going to die." And the scorpion said to the frog, "I couldn't help it. It's in my nature." So the reason why I tell that story is because it sounds like it's in your nature, it's in my nature, it's in Sean's nature to, take the least passive resistance, which is to use.
I seen recovery, and I seen recovery working around me. Kind of in my life, because I had one foot in and one foot out. So that's why I say kind of. I would get a job. I would get accepted into a sober living house. All these things, good things would start happening, and me not doing enough work internally would take them all for granted. And by me not working on me internally, they would be gone faster than I got them.
Yep.
Every time. Kick back out on the street, sober living kicks me out, relapse, vicious cycle.
Weren't you like when I first met you, weren't you the manager of a sober living place?
Yes. So I went through a treatment center and got put on the bunch of mental health medications, let's say like 9 different prescriptions. They diagnosed me with everything, and a MAT program, medical assisted treatment as well. So I'm on all this, and I am doing great. Oh man, this is
Suboxone one of them?
Oh yeah, Suboxone was one of them. That was the medical assisted treatment.
Sure.
Everything else is Zoloft, gabapentin, Boost bars, Seroquel, all that too. But yeah, the Suboxone was a pretty important one. And that's the answer. I figured it out. I found out it's legal. I can't get in trouble. I just take what's on the bottle. I feel great. I perform great. And I'm not using or shooting dope on the mattress behind the Shell gas station. This is it. This is the answer. This is it. I've been looking. I knew it. I knew how. I see how these people are. I see now. So that was the answer. So as long as I stayed doing these things that were legal and prescribed to me, and it made me feel good, then I would never go backwards. This is it. You know?
Well, and here's the thing. And it talks about in all these recovery programs, it's, even if you're prescribed one of those, any drug that is mind altering, it's all about to find this power greater than myself, right? In all those drugs that you mentioned, and I was on when I was first going through detox and everything, a lot of them, not the Suboxone, but they all block me from this possibility of realizing the problem is me, and the way that I can do the way that I can do life now is to have this higher power. And so, I've heard people say, yeah, I'm sober, I'm clean and sober, but I'm taking Adderall. I'm like, well, that's amphetamine, right? So all those things are great excuses, and to tell myself, well, I am sober and clean because the doctor said so. But as you're about to, I'm sure, going to unpack, that was not the solution.
Correct. So it worked until it didn't.
Yeah, that's not a car accident scar on your.
No, it's not. That's
from
not
shooting up cocaine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I ran into you, man. I'm like, damn, that's hard to look at.
Yeah, that was over the relapse, and I let it get so bad and so infected that I would not go to the hospital because I wanted to keep fueling the addiction and getting high.
So how much time you got sober now?
So March 13th, so a month from today will be 1 year.
Wow.
So March 13th is when I went to court, and I took a piece of Suboxone on the way to court. So I count that as, that was the last mental health, the last anything I took was March 13th of 2024. It's a daily thing, and there's certain things that I have to do every single day to remind myself that I cannot run my own life. Because every morning that I get up, literally because of the past, because of the alcoholism, because of the drug addiction, I wake up, and the first thing I wake up every single morning, and it's like I gotta go to war. And people are like, what are you talking about? It's like I gotta go to war for my life every single day. So when I wake up, I remind myself that I gotta strap up, right? I gotta get ready to go to war. How am I gonna do that? I have a routine. I have a routine that I do every day, and I just do not break that routine. I get up early. If you work at 5 in the morning, get up at 4. Whatever you got to do, I did. Let me just say this. I did whatever it took to get that next fixed, right? So I have to be willing to do whatever it's going to take, whether it's losing an hour of sleep, whether it's, requesting a day out of a 7-day week off of work, because I have to do recovery things with recovery people. And that's what I do today. I wake up, I got a routine. I meditate in the morning. I read a little bit here and there. Exercise helps me kind of release, get out of self, right? So there's a 2-3 hour deal that I do every single day before I even think about work.
Right.
Before I even think about work, I got to do this 2 or 3 hour deal every morning, and that comes first and foremost before anything else, and I have to do that.
Absolutely. Well, definitely just taking away from all this that, consequences to a drug addict and an alcoholic, don't really mean anything, right? I mean, they tell a part of our story, but you know, it's only until we surrender to that power, that higher power, that we can be inserted with a little bit of hope.
No doubt.
Give it up to something else. Let somebody else take the wheel. Let me get my ass in the back. I don't even want to hop into the passenger seat. Put me in the back and somebody else drive this thing. So
you young guys would be like, Uber me. I get it. I know why you're in the back.
Taxi.
A taxi.
That's
more relatable.
Your age.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Deon, we appreciate you coming on, man, sharing your
I
story. It's
appreciate
been
you
absolutely incredible.
Absolutely. I appreciate you guys having me, man.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys for watching Power Greater Than You. It's been an absolute pleasure. If you ever need any help or know somebody that needs help, please feel free to reach out to us or call the helpline. There are plenty of resources out there. Do not hesitate. Do not be afraid to ask. We are here to help you guys. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. Follow us on socials. We'll post content there to continue to support and help everybody out there. And once again, we appreciate you watching.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks, Deon.
Cool.
Thank you, guys.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you for tuning into Power Greater Than You. Your support is helping all of us grow closer to a power greater than ourselves. If you or anyone you know is struggling with addiction, don't hesitate to reach out. Help is on the way. Together, we're all getting closer to a power greater than ourselves, one step at a time.